Hello and welcome to Date Night with Martina. I think the technology is letting me down a little bit tonight, so sorry if you've been waiting. I've been waiting as well, and Facebook was just giving me the scroll on starting the Facebook Live. So yeah, welcome to everybody joining me. Please do use the chat box. I love to hear from you, even if you just want to say hello, if you agree with what I say, if you disagree with what I say, use the chat box. If you've got a different perspective you'd like to add, if you have a question you'd like to ask me, please use the chat box for any of that. Hearing from you in the chat box gives me a sense of feeling connected to all of you as a community, and gives me that sense that, I'm not just sitting here talking to myself, looking into a camera. Tonight's topic is polarity in relationships, which is something that is quite critical for a lot of people. And in these current times we're living in, polarity becomes even more important. So I'll speak to that very soon. I can see there's a few people commenting on the post that didn't go ahead. So I'm just going to check my phone quickly to read those. No, it seems I can't get them, but hopefully people are finding me here. Perhaps say hello or drop me a smiley face if you're online here and connected, so that I know you're there. We will move into a breathing practice shortly. Then I've got a question from last week that I'd like to respond to. And then we'll go more deeply into having a look at what polarity is, how it exists in relationships, what happens when it disappears in relationships. We'll also have a look at our own masculine and feminine energies, just kind of a small taste of that, to give you all an experience of your own masculine, your own feminine, and also to make it relevant and useful for singles and couples, because all of us can access our own masculine and our own feminine at any point in time, and knowing how to access those energies is incredibly supportive for our lives as individuals and also in relationships. Then we'll talk a little bit about how to reignite the polarity if you're in a relationship where the polarity feels like it's gone a little dull. So we have a few people sharing some comments here. Jeannie's here and Janine is here. Welcome to both of you. Thank you. Okay, so let's move into a breathing practice, and perhaps some more people will drop in and connect with us once I get the breathing practice started. So if you'd just like to close your eyes, place one hand on the heart, one hand on the lower belly or the pubic bone, and we're going to take some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe out through your mouth, allowing a nice long sigh. So inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. If you actually make your exhale longer than your inhale, it helps the body to relax more deeply. So let's inhale together and then exhale. Making a nice long exhale with a nice sigh. So there's a sense of letting go. There's a sense of your body feeling that it's safe to let go. It's safe to open up. You don't need to be in hyper alert mode. So inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Inhale, exhale. And if you can close your eyes and look down into your belly, have a sense of connecting to yourself from the inside. And imagine relaxing through your head, through your face, through your neck, your shoulders, your arms. Just relaxing and letting go, releasing any of the tension in your body. Breathing down through the chest, through the breasts. Feeling that sense of letting go. Breathing down into the belly and through your back. Imagine your body surrendering, opening and letting go with the breath. One hand on the heart, one hand on the lower belly or the pubic bone, eyes closed. Inhale, and then a longer exhale. Relaxing through your hips, your buttocks, your pelvic floor, your genitals. Breathing through your legs, through your feet, and having a sense of just letting go right through your body. Longer on the exhale. And then have a wriggle, have a stretch, and opening your eyes. Beautiful. I certainly feel more deeply present, more relaxed, and more aliveness, sensation, and tingling through my body after doing that breathing practice. So if you notice anything in your body, if you feel a little differently after the practice, feel free to drop me a note in the chat box. Karen says hello. Carl says hello. Shelley says she finally made it. Monica says hello. And Isabel says happy to be back in the yummy space. Beautiful. Lovely to have you all here. And as well as getting to share with you all, I also take date night as an opportunity to dress up on Wednesday nights now. So it's nice to put on a dress that I really enjoy and put a little bit of makeup on and be here with all of you. So I had one question that came to me during the week from last week, and last week was all about self-pleasure and the importance of being able to tune in to our own self-pleasure as a way of connecting to our body, as a way of expanding our capacity to receive, as a way of knowing what we like, what we don't like, and also building more sensitivity in the body. The self-pleasure practice is really a very strongly feminine practice, but it's a feminine practice that is very important for men and women. And the question that I had from last week about the self-pleasure practice is how to use the self-pleasure practice and to be engaged with that in such a way that your partner doesn't feel excluded or left out. And I think this is a great question, and I'm glad this question came up. It's important for the self-pleasure practice to be something that is part of building your connection to yourself. It's not about excluding your partner. It's not about separating from your partner. It's not about fulfilling your desire somewhere else and then having no desire to bring to your partner. The self-pleasure practice is actually about increasing your receptivity, your sensitivity, and supporting you to hopefully have more desire for connection with your partner. So one of the ways I like to approach it is the fact that the self-pleasure practice has me feel and be more of me, so that there's more of me available and then more of me to bring to my relationship. There'll be times in my relationship with Rod where I might do self-pleasure practice in bed. I might do it as something first thing in the morning while I'm still lying in bed. I might do it last thing at night lying in bed. And if Rod's there and if he's awake, then he's sensitive and respectful and aware of me doing my practice and leaving me to have the space I need to do my practice. Equally, if he's doing a self-pleasure practice, I will feel that. I may even feel my own pleasure and sensitivity and arousal being activated, but I'll honor his space for his practice. And then if after our separate practices, then if the desire is there for us to connect, then beautiful, we have the opportunity to connect. But it's seeing that the self-pleasure practice doesn't take anything away from our relationship connection. It actually has me feel more full and like I have more to bring to my relationship. I remember one night in particular where I was doing the self-pleasure practice and I'd had quite an emotional and full day. So there was a lot of energy in my body. And as I was doing my self-pleasure practice, I had a lot of tears come up. And so I just allowed myself to cry and release and express those tears. And there was some quite deep sobbing that came up. And Rod was awake and he was hearing this. And I remember him being torn, like, I know she's doing her practice. Do I lean over and support her? Or do I leave her to do her practice? And even though she's crying and it feels like she needs support. And he followed his intuition and leant in and wrapped me in his arms. And I kept doing my practice. Even though he was holding me, I still kept touching my own body. And the sobbing and the tears kept coming. And at the same time, I was wrapped in his strong and warm embrace. So in some ways, his holding me in that moment intensified the release, and I was connected to the pleasure of energy moving and also this deep sobbing and emotional outbursts coming through. So in that way, there was a sense of his support bringing even more to my solo practice. There have been other times where we've both been doing self-pleasure practice, lying in bed together, and then we've felt each other's arousal and energy and pleasure, and then that has led to us moving into a mutual experience afterwards. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be about excluding or pushing your partner away, but actually respecting and honoring each other's individual space. So I hope that makes sense to the person who sent me that question. The other question I had was about a breathing practice that Rod taught the men at Men's Level 1. I think it was November 2018. And the breathing practice was a slightly amended version of the Wim Hof breathing practice. So if you want to look that up, you can go to YouTube and just search for Wim Hof breathing practice. I checked with Rod earlier, and we both felt that that was the one that he most likely shared at that event. And the thing to remember with the Wim Hof practice, it's good for building heat and energy in the body. It's not necessarily, so it's not particularly one that you use for relaxing. If you want a breathing practice for relaxing, you do something more similar to what I did at the beginning of this call, where you might breathe in for a count of 4 and then breathe out to a count of 6, making the exhale longer than the inhale. So there's that sense of unwinding and relaxing the nervous system. Okay, I can see there's a few messages coming in. There's one from Jean saying hello, and she feels slightly more on the ground after the breathing practice, but she's struggling a little with screen time, which is understandable given that a lot of things are happening on screens right now. Sherry says hi. Justine says found you. Lee says g'day. Monica says I look nice. Thank you. Thank you. And Karen says beautiful. Lovely to have you all here. So let's move now into tonight's topic, which is about polarity, quite specifically in relationships. And the reason this is important now is because a lot of people are home together 24/7, and there can be that sense of people spending too much time together, and some of the polarity starts to wear away in relationship. There can be a sense of becoming more same rather than that sense of opposite energy that attracts. So polarity really is, it's the sexual spark that is created between opposite but complementary energies. It's that sense of the masculine and feminine in each other going, zing, I feel you, I see you, I'm responding to you. So it's the place where the desire, the spark, the sexual energy gets ignited. Now, if two people are spending a lot of time together, there's a tendency that people become more and more similar, more and more like each other. And you'll notice, I mean, this happens in friendships, that happens with colleagues as well, whereby we sometimes start to speak in a similar way to people we spend a lot of time with. We'll use similar mannerisms. We'll start to move our body in a similar way. Now, in an intimate and romantic relationship, if we become too much alike, then we end up not feeling desire for each other. There can be a sense when people are home together that if they're relaxing, if they're chatting, if they're having lovely connection time, talking about, might be talking about school schedules for the kids, it might be talking about what they want to do in the garden, it might be going for a walk together, watching some Netflix together. There can be that sense of hanging out in those relaxed ways together, that both partners end up being in feminine energy. There's a sense of like, oh yeah, this is nice. We're flowing, we're connecting, we're enjoying pleasure together. This feels yummy, but it doesn't feel like oomph of like sexual spark. Or there can be the other thing that can happen is that sense of like, okay, we've got some projects to do. Let's renovate the house. Let's set up, how we need the house to be. Let's get the kids organized. Let's, turn the spare room into a gym so we can both work out, which has a more masculine flavor to it. There's a sense of direction and purpose and building and creating and achieving things together. So both partners can be in that masculine energy of let's get some things done. Igor and Natalie have just joined us. Lovely to have you both here. That must mean that you have the children occupied or in bed in time to join live. So there are times when it's appropriate for both partners to be in feminine energy and for there to be a sense of enjoying food together, enjoying pleasure, enjoying connection. There are times when it's appropriate for both partners to be in masculine energy of like, let's get some stuff done. Let's tidy up the house. Let's tidy up the yard. Being in those, both in the feminine or both in the masculine, there are healthy times and places where that's appropriate. However, from that place, it's rare that people will feel sexual desire or sexual attraction, because the sexual desire or sexual attraction doesn't arise when we feel same. Danny is here. Welcome, Danny. It's lovely to have so many familiar people and also some new people joining on the Facebook Live space. One of the analogies that I liken it to when we become too same, it's like the rocks that you find at the bottom of a riverbed. The rocks at the bottom of a riverbed are generally flat rocks because they've spent weeks, months, years rubbing up against each other. So all of their edges, all of their bumpy bits, all of the jutting out bits get worn away and they just become flat. So they're comfortable, there's a sense of harmony, there's a sense of, cooperating together, but there's no like spark or oomph or desire present. And people often think that the sexual desire or the sexual polarity is hard to come by, but sexual polarity can be initiated. Polarity can be turned around just like that. People think it's kind of a mystical thing that just happens at the beginning of relationships and then disappears. But the truth is anyone can switch the polarity in their relationship at any time. It comes down to being a conscious choice. Stuart says definitely both in masculine at the moment. Yeah. And again, that can be healthy, appropriate. There's a place for it. And it's important to remember that if you want to have a sexual connection, one of you needs to switch the polarity. And so it comes down to how do we make that conscious choice? How do we flip from both being in masculine or both being in feminine to one in masculine, one in feminine? It's quite common that people will complain about their partner. People go into the mode of, my partner's in his feminine all the time, or men will be like, my partner's in their masculine. But rather than complaining about our partners, we can take a more extreme and polarized experience of the masculine or the feminine in order to support a shift in the energy between us and our partner. So before we go into how that works in partner dynamics, I want everybody to have a taste of being in the feminine energy and a taste of being in the masculine energy. So we're going to go into the feminine energy first because it's closer to the surface for me right now and therefore easier to guide you into. So going into the feminine energy is about radiance, flow, expression, connection, pleasure. So I want you to close your eyes, place your hands on your body, And it's a little bit like our self-pleasure practice from last week, but just start to caress your thighs and rock your body back and forth. So you're taking nice deep breaths, caressing your thighs, rocking your torso, so you're rocking it out of your hips. And feel the place where the energy flows inside of you. Tuning into your pleasure. You might move your touch to your hands, to your arms, to your chest, to your breasts, to your neck. You might let your body move side to side as you continue the touch. Imagining that you're amplifying your pleasure with every movement, with every touch, with every caress of your body. Amplifying pleasure, but feeling that pleasure from deep inside of your own body. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from within you. Take your hands to your face, caress your face, your head, your neck. And feel that pleasure radiating through your body, through your aura, letting yourself shine, letting yourself expand, letting yourself feel the glow, the buzz, the aliveness, the sensation through your physical body and into your aura. And then releasing your feminine. Just coming back to the webinar space. There's a sense that our feminine energy expands, it feels more alive. My video just dropped out for a second. So feminine energy is expansive, it's alive, it's pleasure, it's radiance. And certainly as I was guiding you all through the practice, I could feel sensation, pleasure, aliveness, and expansion happening throughout my body and my aura. So if you feel to share, please do share in the chat box what you noticed during the feminine energy practice. Just going to have a little sip of some water. One of the things that will happen for me on a daily basis when I'm in feminine energy mode, there's this sense that I'll be cooking and I'll play with the cats and I'll do some emails and put some music on and have a dance. So there'll be that sense that I'm doing lots of things and I'm in the flow of the moment, like multitasking, moving from one thing to the next and really enjoying all the sensations and pleasures and experiences that are happening around me. So yeah, feminine is not necessarily about a straight line and getting things done. It can be like, oh yeah, I'm cooking 2 or 3 meals at once, and oh yeah, I'm doing some emails, and I'm listening to a podcast, and I'll have a little dance to some music, and all those things can happen at the same time. Don't know if you can see my crazy cat there in the background. She's chasing something on the wall. She's possibly even just chasing a spot. And she seems to find all the dirty marks on our walls. So sometimes I'll see her throwing herself at the wall. And I'm like, oh, what's she chasing? And I'll be like, oh, it's a dirty mark on the wall. Thank you. And you'll notice Hades is not with us tonight. He's actually outside chasing moths tonight. Justine says she felt her heart opening during the practice, and Lee said he felt light, heightened sensation and pleasure. Beautiful. So let's move now into the masculine practice. So a little bit of a switch for me from where I am right now and where I've been most of today. But let's close our eyes. Have your spine be straight, feeling your hips, locking your hips still, your spine still, your neck, your head, keeping everything still and straight. And coming into a sense of presence, a sense of deep stillness in the body. Taking deep breaths as you breathe into your masculine energy. And breathe into that place where there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go. You're simply here in this present moment. Keeping your hands still on your legs or your lap. Feet still, legs still. And just breathing into the stillness. And find the depth in the stillness. Notice how the more still you become, the more deep your presence becomes. Breathing right through the central channel of the body. Still, deep, present, focused on your breath. Everything else falls away, coming into the clarity of the present moment. The place where there's nothing to do and nowhere to go. Feeling your stillness, your presence, your depth, your focus. Focusing on your breath. And release the practice, coming back to the webinar space. And if you'd like to share into the chat box how you experienced your masculine energy, I'd love to hear from you. I certainly felt myself very strong, present, and deep in the stillness. There was a sense of clarity and focus in that stillness where everything else could just fall away. There was a sense of like, whew, I'm here, I'm focused, and this is what I'm doing. So masculine energy is that stillness, presence, focus, and in that there's a lot of depth. There's the possibility for everything else to fall away when we come in to be that still. And it made me realize how much today I have been quite fully engaged with the feminine energy, and even when I did my sitting meditation today, I did it outside, and I was aware when I did it that I wasn't very still at the time. I was kind of like, the cats are playing and the dog and the trees and the breeze and things going on around me, and my energy was floating around. So yeah, this just now to come into really pure stillness and presence actually felt quite deeply nourishing to me. So it's important for men and women to be able to enjoy both masculine and feminine aspects. Karen says her daily TM meditation practice feels like this, masculine. Beautiful. Lee says he felt monolithic, smiley, focused home during the practice. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and everybody will have a more natural tendency in one than the other. Justine says she felt such a sense of calm and a kind of connection up through her crown. Yeah. For some people, Danny says natural. Danny says natural. Lee said home. So a lot of the men who are very aligned with their masculine energy feel like it's natural, it's home, that's the place that feels most comfortable. Women who are more have a stronger tendency to their feminine energies will find that they're more at home in a practice where there's flow and sensation and movement. Monica says, I loved it initially, like it is where I need to be, then began yawning, harder to stay still, became distracted, soft tears. Janine says, felt very unnatural, not flowy. Yeah, and that can be a challenge when we're in the one that is not our natural disposition. However, part of the benefit of cultivating both is so that we become more integrated and more whole in our humanness, because women who spend most of their time in their feminine energy and can't access their masculine energy will become overly dependent for men to bring that masculine energy. And equally, men who become overly engaged in their masculine energy and spend all their time hanging out there will become overly dependent on women for the feminine energy. And a life spent mostly in masculine energy can start to feel too hard, too brittle, too disconnected, and lacking in nourishment. And equally, a life that is spent mostly in feminine energy without any masculine energy will feel chaotic, will feel like there's too much flow, no structure, will feel like there's just energy and life and things happening everywhere, but no direction. So it's important for us as individuals to be able to access both energies, but it's also important in our relationships, because there will be times when Rod is going through something and he needs to be in his feminine energy. You know, he'll need to be able to talk about his feelings. He'll need to be able to process what he's going through. And so then there's a benefit to me being able to hold that place of stillness and masculine presence for him while he processes what's alive for him. And equally, there can be times when I might have an idea for, let's say, something we're working on in the business, and I can have a lot of masculine energy when it comes to organizing and driving and directing those things. And so Rod might step into more of a support role and bring more feminine energy, bringing some of the flavors and sensation to it whilst I'm carrying the direction. So there's times for all of us to be able to explore both aspects. There's a comment from Carl who says he was driving for the whole thing, so meditating had its challenges, but it was actually a beautiful reminder of how powerful and effective eyes open meditations can be while driving. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Carl. I hope you're not driving while you typed that. And these practices are practices that you can use at any time for reminding yourself of those energies, how to reconnect with your masculine, how to reconnect with your feminine. So now to have a look at how that plays out in terms of the polarity in relationship. So if both partners are in masculine energy, if both partners are in that place of let's get shit done, let's be busy, let's achieve things, let's work hard. If both partners are in that masculine energy, and let's say the woman feels like she wants to move into more of an intimate, connecting, sexual polarity, then she simply drops back into her feminine. She could just stand there and start to caress her body and go, oh, I feel so good right now. I feel so alive. I feel so energized from all the hard work we've been doing. Really want to go and have a shower and wash off and, make myself feel really beautiful and warm and cozy. I'll be waiting for you inside. So in that way, the feminine body of the woman becomes the invitation. The feminine body of the woman becomes like, oh, I really want to be sensual. I'm ready to strip out of these clothes and just connect with you in a different way. So she's not telling him, this is what we're going to do, because if she goes, it's time for us to have some sexual intimacy, the man's like, ugh. And you stay in that masculine energy, quite likely you end up at loggerheads. And I know that Danny's sitting at home right now going, men don't go, eat. That's a Martina thing. Yes, that's a Martina thing. So I'll call it out before anybody else does. But a man, quite often, and particularly a masculine man, if he feels directed, if he feels controlled by his partner, he's much more likely to go, not interested, and just pull into himself. Whereas a masculine man, when his partner goes, my body feels so energized. I really need to go shower and clean up, and I'd love to see you in the bedroom. Then he's like, hell yeah, I'm going to meet her in the bedroom. So the way you move your body, the way you breathe, the way you speak can exude that feminine invitation. If I'm like, going in for a shower now, I'm still in the business-like mode. If I'm like, I'm going in to have a shower now, there's a pretty strong chance that when I go into that, I'm going in for a shower now, the light, the playful, the sensual, the sexy charge present in my body, it's a pretty sure guarantee that Rod's going to feel that, because even if he doesn't consciously register it in his mind, somewhere in his body's like, there's something for me to do now. The masculine response is to want to follow that energy, and or not necessarily follow, bad choice of words. The masculine energy responds to the feminine energy, and there's a sense of wanting to open that feminine energy even more deeply. It's like, she's open, she's inviting me. How can I open her even more deeply? Equally, let's say if we go back to the situation where if you've both been working hard, you're both in the masculine mode, the man can go into the mode of making his masculine stronger than her masculine. So let's say if I think of an example of Rod and I cleaning out the shed, which was something that we did a few months back, and we're both kind of lifting and lugging stuff around, and being in that energy of getting things done. He can change the energy of me being in the masculine with him just by coming over to me. He can just walk up, expand his own masculine. Now, how does he expand, or perhaps more correctly, deepen his own masculine? He'll deepen his breath. He'll slow down. He'll look at me with that kind of focused, determined, penetrating energy. And then as he walks up to me and takes a firm hold of me, he'll be like, and he'll breathe me in, and the strength of his masculine is strong enough that I then relax back into my feminine, because I can feel that penetrating masculine gaze. I can feel his masculine focus and intention coming so fully and strongly towards me that all that's left for me to do is to soften. All that's left for me to do is to go inside. So either one of us can be responsible for shifting the energy so that we're not both in the masculine. The other thing that can happen is that if Rod, wanted for me to hold him in that moment, if he wanted to go into the feminine, he could go into the feminine energy and, ask for some form of me holding, supporting, nourishing him in that moment. So it doesn't have to be that you just both stay in the masculine. Either partner can take responsibility and make a conscious choice for shifting the energy in that moment. And it can be a really beautiful and delicious experience for both people. Theodos, I'm not sure if I've said that properly, but says, wow, that resonates. Awesome. I'm not sure which bit, but glad to hear it resonates. Greg says, what about a lot of single parent women who have had to spend a lot of time in their masculine, and they find a man who is comfortable in his feminine a lot of the time? I'll come back to that. It's a great question, Greg. Let's save it for the end, because I think it's quite an important question. So then let's look at a situation where both the man and the woman are in their feminine energy. Let's say they've been sitting on the couch for hours. They're watching Netflix. They've been sharing chocolate, and they're like, oh, I love having cozy time with you. I love having cozy time with you. And it's just all mushy, yummy. It's cozy. It feels good. There's lots of pleasure, lots of connection, but not much sex. How do you switch out of that feminine mode into feminine masculine mode? Well, it may be that, let's say, if Rod wanted to switch the energy, Rod could be like, he could look at me again with that penetrating masculine gaze and go, come on, babe, I'm taking you to bed now. And I'll be like, yes, please. So he can step into that more strongly masculine place and be directive. And being directive can be, he's feeling me. He'll be like, yeah, she feels open. She feels connected. But in order for the spark to be back, I've got to step back into the masculine. And so I'm going to do that by directing the moment, by feeling into her, directing my intention, my focus, my gaze, feeling into her, and then being like, come on, babe, I'm taking you to bed and getting those clothes off right now. Or it might be, come on, let's go jump in the shower. I want to see you naked. Can be quite simple. It's just a matter of the man then making that choice that he's going to step back into that masculine, that place of stillness, presence, focus, like, and he's opening the moment. Or if I wanted to make the shift in energy, then it would be like, well, how do I then be more feminine than Rod is being in that moment so that I flip him into the masculine polarity? So it might be that as we're lying on the couch, I then just like, oh, I feel so luscious and so yummy. Oh, I'm really, really craving to be naked with you right now. Oh, I really just want to lie down naked with you and feel your body against mine. And so in that moment, I've gone back to being the feminine invitation. I've gone back to like, this is me inviting you. This is me, like feeling feminine, expanded, open. Oh, and I really want to be naked with you. And then that way it creates that like, the spark comes back, because by going into a more extreme version of feminine than him, he's the inner guidance in Rod will be like, okay, I'm in the masculine now. It's like our bodies respond to each other all the time. And when we kind of hang out in the middle, which is what happens in a lot of relationships, we end up hanging out in the middle, not particularly masculine, not particularly feminine. So when one partner chooses to go to the feminine extreme, it'll propel the other partner to the masculine extreme. And equally, if one partner goes to the masculine extreme, they propel the other one to the feminine extreme. So it comes back to the conscious choices we make. Equally, if we go back to the example of us sitting on the couch and we're all chilled and filled up on Netflix and chocolates, and if I wanted to be more masculine in that moment, because I can step into the masculine and create polarity in that way. So it might be that I then say to Rod, come on, babe, get your clothes off. I want you naked right now. So then I'm stepping into directing and leading the moment. I'm stepping into the stronger masculine energy. And he can be receptive in that moment. He can go, okay. And he can stay in that feminine receptivity of receiving me, being like, come on, this is what's happening now. And so you can play with the masculine and feminine energies in a variety of ways. Quite typically in mine and Rod's relationship, the strongest sexual polarity happens when I'm in the feminine and he's in the masculine. And it can be that, if he's been sitting down, he might have been sitting down watching boats or watching fighting or fishing or something on TV, because activities are a bit limited at the moment. But if I want to feel that connection with him, I'll walk into the room and I'll do something silly. I'll do a sexy dance. I'll be sensual. I'll touch my own body. I'll start to strip a little bit for him. I'll do something that like changes the energy between us. Equally, I might have been working and Rod can walk into the room And, he'll make me laugh to, like, shift the energy, but then he might be like, come here. And when he's like, come here, I'm like, oh, I can feel his masculine opening me in that moment, and my whole body lights up, ignites, and responds. So, yeah, there's lots of different ways to consciously play with the masculine and feminine polarity, and to know that you can make that choice. It doesn't matter whether you've been together for 3 months or 6 months or 6 years or 26 years. Polarity can be reignited. The connection to your own body is quite critical to bringing that intentionality of energy. Because if a woman, let's say if a woman does her sensuality as a superficial thing, like if her sensuality is, if it's flippant, like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like if a woman's sensuality is just surface level or superficial or flippant, and there's no embodiment of her sensuality, the man won't be as, he won't be ignited or propelled into action the same way. It's the actual embodiment of the feminine energy that creates the more visceral and complete response. Equally, if a man hasn't learnt to really embody his masculine, like if his masculine's like, come over here, but it doesn't have any body or depth underneath it, a woman can feel controlled and dominated in an unsupportive way. Equally, when a woman's feminine is surface level, it can feel like manipulation and hooks and not so alluring for a man. Carl says, thank you. It's been too long. Have housemate dinner now, but we'll watch the rest later. Good to have you on here, Carl. Thank you for your sharing. And yeah, maybe one day I'll see you in person again, whenever it is that I see people in person again. Yeah, so I'm just about to wind up for tonight. I'll come back to Greg's question. And if anybody else has questions about how the polarity operates in relationships or how you can work with it as single people, I'd love to have your questions. Feel free to type them in. So coming back to Greg's question, so yes, there are a lot of single women who are raising children that spend a lot of time in their masculine, and then they will find themselves attracted to a man who is in his feminine. I know a lot of women, friends and clients in that situation, who have a familiarity and comfort in their masculine. It's familiar, it's comfortable, it's safe. But as soon as they start to explore the feminine, they start to tap into their deeper innate longing. Now, not every woman wants to be in her feminine a lot, but the majority of women I've worked with, if they've spent a lot of time in their masculine, they'll have a deep longing for more of their feminine. They'll have a deep longing to know how to fall into or surrender to their own feminine, but they don't know how to take themselves there. So what I do as a facilitator is supporting women to feel safe in their own feminine and to be able to fall into that place internally, because when a woman finds her feminine internally, she doesn't need to look for it externally. So oftentimes the masculine women who find themselves in relationships with feminine men, they're doing that because it feels safe. They get to stay in control. They get to stay in a place that feels comfortable. But it's not necessarily the deepest place that a woman wants to live from. And so as a man in a relationship with a woman, feeling into her to see, is she a woman who is actually longing to open to her feminine? And I was having a conversation with a girlfriend just a few days ago about this, that thing in a woman where she longs to surrender, she longs to be able to let go, but she's so busy organizing kids and school and schedules and all those kinds of things that she just hasn't felt safe in her life to be able to let go to that place. And so what a man can do is be that rock, be that masculine presence that's like, I'm here for you. I've got your back, and bring that kind of masculine intentionality that I've been speaking about, that kind of stillness, focus, and presence that has a woman go like, oh, I can melt in his presence. I can melt when he's around. When a woman has that sensation in her body of feeling safe to melt in a man's presence, she starts to blossom, she starts to radiate, she becomes so much more alive. And then she also feels incredibly grateful, and she wants to shower that gratitude onto the man who has supported and helped her opening. So if you are somebody who has found yourself dating masculine women, just inquire a little bit. Are they tired of holding that masculine energy all the time? Are they tired of holding everything together? Are they longing for that melting, for that letting go, for that surrender? Because that is something that you can bring to a woman if you choose to. If you are a man who prefers to be more in his feminine and you want to date masculine women and that's all good for you, then by all means do that. The other thing I was thinking, and this is a common thing that I've heard from women in the past, is that women often feel resentful that they end up with feminine men. And we always end up attracting our opposite. And so if you are somebody who is attracting feminine men, you then go in and you fall into your own feminine more deeply, because when you fall into your own feminine more deeply, then you will attract in a more masculine man. And we can never make the other person be more masculine or be more feminine. But for women who are in relationships and they have experienced frustration with their partners being too feminine, you can't change him, but you can fall more into your feminine, which will inspire his masculine. Our feminine is so inspiring to men that it instantly has them lift up into their masculine energy. Okay, let me check the comments here. Karen says, does grief hold a masculine or feminine flavor? Good question, Karen. I've never really considered that. My experience of grief is, my experience actually, not just of grief, but of all of the emotions, is that they will have masculine and feminine aspects. So there's, let's say in grief, there's the sense of surrendering to the emotion, surrendering to the grief. So that in itself can feel feminine. And but then even inside of grief, there'll be times when grief is, moving through the body. There'll be times when grief is about sounding and expression, again, which is feminine. But there'll be other times where grief just feels like empty and still and deep and a real sense of nothingness in the grief. And that would be the masculine aspect of grief. So yeah, I would say that grief can have both masculine and feminine flavors. I hope that helps you, Karen. Sean says, hello, enjoying the wonderful wisdom, particularly enjoying the sound effects. Thank you, Sean. Yes, I do a lot of sound effects and feel a little bit self-conscious about it now, but yes, thank you for enjoying them. Mel says she was at the physio. Great reminder to fall back into her feminine and internally control my old friend. Yes, control is a difficult one to let go of, Mel, but yeah, keeping on falling back into the feminine is the gift that we need so much as women, to have that like bathing in our own essence from the inside, finding our pleasure and sensation and sensitivity and receptivity within. And it's incredibly, incredibly nourishing and inspiring for men. So I suggest, Mel, that you might want to, once the recording of this is up, perhaps go on and watch the beginning of it, because we did a breathing practice at the beginning and also a feminine-based pleasure practice, which I think you'll enjoy as some good reminders. Mel also says she's longing to surrender. Yes, please. Greg says that was awesome. Thank you. Alison says, hi, I think I've missed a lot. Well, you can go back and watch the recording. I'm going to end now. I'm a little bit past 8 o'clock, so I've been on for just over an hour. But it's been beautiful, beautiful sharing with all of you who've been here. Lovely again to have a lot of familiar faces, but also new faces. If you have any questions that you'd prefer to send to me privately, you can send those questions to me privately, and then I will respond to them at the beginning of next week's call. So thank you so much. It's been heaps of fun. I've loved Wednesday night date night. And now I'm going to go and find Rod, and be time for some dinner and possibly some Netflix. Actually, not possibly, definitely some Netflix. We're watching Money Heist at the moment and really, really loving it. Anyway, have a great evening, everybody, and practice your conscious choice of stepping in to creating that polarity, the attraction, the spark in your relationships. See you all soon. Thank you.